Good afternoon. Today, for our lunchtime devotion, we are looking at the passage that is just before constitution of the Lord's Supper, which we'll be doing next week. But because the passages are short, there are three passages that's listed: Matthew 26, Mark 14, as well as Luke 22. I will just read through the three passages, and then we will look at two or three things from there. Okay, Matthew chapter 26, verses 17 to 19. Okay, on the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He replied, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I'm going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. So that is the one in Matthew version. In Mark chapter 14, verses 12 to 16, it reads like this. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, when it was customary to sacrifice the Passover lamb, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go and make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" So he sent two of his disciples, telling them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jug of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, 'The teacher asked, where is my guest room, where I might eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." Verse 16, the disciples left, went into the city, and found things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover. The third passage was in Luke chapter 22, verses 7 to 13. So this is a slightly longer passage. We'll probably deal a little bit more on this. Then verse 7, then came the day of the unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover." "Where do you want us to prepare for it?" they asked. He replied, "As you enter the city, a man carrying a jug of water will meet you. Follow him to the house he enters, and say to the owner of the house, 'The teacher asked, where is the guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, all furnished. Make preparations there." They left and found things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover. When we look at these three passages, a few things we note there were a bit of differences between the passages. The first thing we would like to look a bit more is, because all the three passages talk about Passover, the three passages, the three gospel writers also talk about Feast of the Unleavened Bread. So sometimes we may wonder whether they are exactly the same or whether they are different. So actually what happened when we talk about the Passover, it is talk about an event. An event, it is a meal, a Passover meal. Okay, but when we talk about the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, it is talking about a 1 week long festival. Okay, so in that sense, Passover is an event or a meal that starts the whole week celebration of the unleavened bread, festival of the unleavened bread. How does this start about the Passover and the Feast of the Unleavened Bread? Okay, so let us look at Exodus. If you have your Bible with you, let's turn to Exodus chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12, we will read through, give you a bit of time to turn to the Bible, so we'll read through together. So we have a better understanding what is the Passover And what is the festival of the unleavened bread? Exodus chapter 12 is recorded right after the 10 plagues. So this is the Jews were still in, the Israelite Hebrews were still in Egypt at the end before they left. And then after that, if you just flip, then towards the end of chapter 12, we talk about Exodus. So this instruction that the Lord gave to Moses and Aaron is when they were still in Egypt. Okay, chapter 12, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, this month is to be for you the first month. So because it's new year, the first month of the year. Tell the whole community of Israel that of the 10th day of this month, each one is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. Then verse 4 says, if any household is too small for the whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor, having taken into account the number of people there are. So you are to determine the amount of the lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. Okay, so that's where when we read, Jesus wanted his disciples to prepare the Passover meal for him. And so from that time on, Passover meal is either celebrated your own family, or if a family is too small, maybe 2 or 3 families together. And so it is perfectly logical and perfectly okay for Jesus to celebrate this Passover with his 12 disciples, because they are like family to him. Okay, let's go back to this verse 5. The animals you choose must be year-old male without defect, and you may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month, when all the members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight in the evening. Then they are to take some of the blood and put them on the sides and the tops of the door frame of the houses where they eat the lamb. That same night, they are to eat the meats roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Okay, do not eat the meat raw or boiled in water, but roast over a fire. Roast lamb, when I read it, I can smell the roast lamb during barbecue. Okay, with the head, legs, and internal organs. Can you imagine you are roasting the whole lamb with the stomach, with the intestine, large, small intestine, everything together, roasting the thing. So verse 10, do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till the morning, you must burn it. Okay, this is how you are to eat it. With your cloak tucked inside your belt, into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It's the Lord's Passover. Okay, verse 12 answered, on the same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn of both people and animals. And I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. Then the blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. Verse 14, this is the day you are to commemorate. For the generations to come, you shall celebrate it as the festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance. Verse 50, so for 7 days. Okay, just like we're talking about Passover, the lamb is, but now it's for 7 days. This is the festival of the unleavened bread. For 7 days, you are to eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, remove the yeast from your houses. For whoever eats anything with yeast in them from the first day through the 7th must be cut off from Israel. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly, and another one on the 7th day. Do not work at all on those days, except to prepare food for everyone to eat. That is all you may do. The verse 17, celebrate the festival of the unleavened bread, different from Passover, because it was on this very day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. Celebrate this day as the lasting ordinance for the generation to come. Okay, in the first month, you are to eat bread without yeast from the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day. Okay, for 7 days, no yeast is to be found in your houses, and anyone, whether foreigner or native born, who eats anything with yeast in it must be cut off from the community of Israel. Eat nothing made with yeast. Wherever you live, you must eat unleavened bread. Okay, maybe when you go back, you can read the rest of the chapter until 28. So you realize that there is a difference. Passover is one event, one meal. Unleavened bread is a festival of 7 days. And the first day and the last day is to be consecrated and to celebrate it as the Sabbath. So some Bible scholars were talking about why in some places it said when talk about Sabbath on Jesus last week. And that, I think it's David Paulson says this is a special Sabbath. It's not a regular 6th day of the week Sabbath. I think he refers to this. Because the feast of the Passover, the first day of the feast and the 7th day, they are celebrated as special Sabbath, not the 6th-day Sabbath. Matthew 26, where it talks about the feast of the unleavened bread and feast of the unleavened bread as well as the Passover feast. Okay, so that's where, as I mentioned just now, Jesus will tell the disciples, you go and prepare. Okay, so if you look back at the 3 passages we read just now, in the Matthew passage, verse 17, Jesus asked the disciples to go and prepare the Passover. Okay, in the Mark passage, verse 13, Jesus said he sent 2 of his disciples. Okay, whereas in the Luke passage, in verse 8, the 2 disciples were named. They were Peter and John. Okay, and in the Matthew passage, where it talks about go into the house as well as Luke. So most likely, most Bible scholar will say that most likely this home is the home of someone who is a Jesus follower, because it said your teacher asked you to. Okay, so that is how they will have to prepare. Okay, if you look at the 3 passages, especially you look at the one in Luke, Jesus told the disciples, when you enter the city, that is city of Jerusalem, and then you will meet a man carrying a jar. Okay, that is will be quite obvious. If you go to a city, usually in the Jewish community, it is a woman who carry water. Okay, that's why when we read about the passage of the woman at the well, it is a woman who came to the well to carry water. And sometimes this Samaritan woman had to come at noontime instead of the morning time where most women come. So if you go into the city and you see instead of a woman carrying a jug of water, it is a man. So it is quite easily identified. And the Lord said you follow him to the house, to the owner, and you tell the owner this, my teacher needs it. Okay, and then he said there will be a room prepared upstairs, and you go and prepare. Okay, as we read the passage in Exodus, they have to look for a lamb, they have to buy the bitter herbs, they have to buy the unleavened bread. That's what they have to do. So quite a lot of things to prepare. Okay, a question that's always asked, which was in the brief with Jesus, about this incident. Did Jesus know, because he's God, and he knew that pre-knowledge that when Peter and John enter the city, he will meet this man carrying a jar. The man, he said, you follow the man, go to the house, the owner, and so on. Did he have pre-knowledge of that? Or some Bible scholars that, which is also mentioned in our BWJ reading, Jesus might have pre-arranged that because Jesus knew what is coming. And Jesus knew he had to have celebrate the Passover meal with his disciple. So he actually made pre-arrangement. Tell this man, you are the sign, you carry the jug. At this time, you go through the city and my disciples will meet you and you go. So which one, whether either way, We don't know, because the Bible never states clearly. But the important point that we need to know is, this is what happened. Jesus' disciples went to the city, to Jerusalem, and they met the man carrying the jar. The man led them to the house, and they talked to the owner, and they went and prepared. And this is what happened. And then I think tomorrow Pastor is going to continue the devotion and talk about how they celebrate the Passover. So I'm just going to show you 2 videos. And this video will show you about what is the Passover meal about. Okay, the Hebrew call it Seder.
Passover is a major Jewish holiday that happens every spring. And we keep this Passover party going for 8 whole days. Kind of like Hanukkah, but not. Just because it's a major holiday that most Jews and even a lot of non-Jews know about, doesn't mean you don't have questions. I mean, heck, I still have questions. And this is really exciting. Question 1, what is Passover? Passover celebrates the Jews' redemption from slavery in Egypt and their exodus out of that narrow place of oppression. You can read all about it in the book of Exodus. Question 2, how do Jews prepare for Passover? You didn't think we just celebrate and enjoy the holiday, did you? I mean, that would be crazy. We have to prepare, and we have to prepare really hard. The preparation for Passover is basically a month-long holiday in and of itself. It involves the religious equivalent of spring cleaning, whereby we remove all chametz, which is leavened wheat, oats, rye, barley, and spelt, from our houses. Chametz. It takes some serious effort to get a Jewish house ready for Passover, all to prevent any grains from touching the surface of our lives and our souls for 8 days. So this means for 8 days, no bread, no pasta, no pizza, no cake, no cookies. We throw it out. Just get it out of our lives. Get out. Oh, and also, just to really kick things up a notch, any leftover chametz that we find hiding in the nooks and crannies of our lives, the morning that Passover starts, we burn it. We kill it with fire. We just torch it. Serious business. Very serious. Burn it. So what do we eat if not those crazy grains? Well, we eat lots of matzah. That's right, matzah is a fairly pathetic, crisp, crackery sort of bread product that we eat for 8 days. It bakes flat because it doesn't have any yeast. Poor matzah. There are 2 main reasons why we eat matzah for Passover. Tradition holds that matzah is very similar to the kind of bread that our ancestors ate when they were slaves in Egypt. It is thus called the bread of affliction. What it really afflicts these days is your intestinal tract. Question 3. So what do we actually do on Passover? I'm glad you asked. We really cut loose on Passover. We drink lots of wine, then we sing crazy drinking songs, we stay up late, and it's a gigantic party. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not. Woo, woo, Passover. The way that Jews celebrate Passover, even the least religious among us, if modified a bit, is with a formal meal called a Seder. Seder means order, because we're Jews and we love order and lots of rules. The Seder has 15 different steps, and while many Jews cut out after the meal, which in case you're wondering is item number 11, traditional Jews do them all, and it can and does take many hours. At the Seder, we read from this special book called a Haggadah, and we retell the story of our journey from slavery to freedom. We recall the 10 epic plagues that God brought down to set us free. We drink 4 cups of wine or grape juice, and we sing drinking songs you can't help but sing along with. And even though Seders are long, they are great for kids who stay up late enough to experience them. My children like to tell the Exodus story using Playmobil figures. Oh, we didn't do Pharaoh. It's very powerful to see them make this ancient story their own. We also always welcome non-Jews to our Seder so that they can experience our cultural tradition and our knack for storytelling. We also like to show people how impossible it is to pronounce certain ancient rabbis' names. They're very long and very impossible. Azariah, Rabbi Tarfon.
Rabbi Carphone?
Passover makes me very nostalgic. You know, we all have traditions. We all have Passover memories. Mine involve all of us sitting around a table, laughing and singing and eating traditional Passover foods, a lot of Manischewitz products, those are the memories that my family has of Passover.
This second video is a little bit different. Talk about what is the meaning of Seder. Give us a little bit more information.
In the middle of the table, there's wine, a stack of matzah, and a cup of wine for Elijah the prophet, who's said to visit every seder. Additionally, there's the seder plate. It can be anything from a fancy ceramic piece imported from Israel to a makeshift number hacked together from picnicware. On the seder plate, a shank bone, egg, bitter herb, charoset, karpas, and a piece of lettuce. Each thing symbolizes a different aspect of Passover. Also, everyone has a Haggadah, the book or printouts that guides you through the Seder. There are tons of different Haggadahs. Minimal and elaborate, you can get them in Hebrew, English, or both, with any kind of commentary you like, from feminist to environmental to Hasidic to political. There are versions for kids, for interfaith groups, and for activists. And of course, people remix the tradition every which way to make it their own. Seder literally translates to order, so let's talk about that. There's a few traditions to start. Blessing the wine, washing your hands, dipping veggies into salt water, and then breaking the middle matzah. Half of it, called the afikoman, gets hidden surreptitiously. Then comes the main event, the telling of the Exodus from Egypt. Or more accurately, the main event is an interactive reading of rabbinical discussions about how to remember the Exodus. When the Seder was put together, the rabbis assumed everyone going in knew the story, so it was silly to just retell it. Instead, they went deeper, and in doing so, created a holiday that is about memory. How do people, today, relate to these themes of liberation and redemption? At many Seders, people go around the table and read a paragraph each from the Haggadah. People add songs and discussions about what happened back then and about parallels with today's world. Seders around the world may include diverse traditions like hitting your neighbor with green onions, pouring water on the floor, or pulling out a bag of plushy plagues. And overachievers hold all-night seders. One famous part of the seder is the 4 questions, where the youngest child at the table asks, Ma nishtana? If you are the youngest child, you can practice here. Learning songs is a great way to prep for the Seder. If you have to pick one, make it the chorus to Dayenu. It's one word, and you can learn it here. After the storytelling piece, there's a few more customs. More hand washing, eating matzah, then maror, something bitter like horseradish, then a matzah maror sandwich, and then dinner. If you're at a Sephardi Seder, there might be kitniyot included. People's strenuousness about keeping kosher for Passover varies widely. For instance, some folks won't eat anything made with wet matzah, including the Passover staple, matzah balls. After the main meal and dessert, there's the search for the afikoman. Whoever finds it gets a prize, and everyone else gets the ability to finish the meal with a tiny piece of matzah. Now, just being honest, a lot of seders peter out here with tired kids and matzah kugel-induced food comas. But at a full seder, you continue with Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals, followed by opening the door for Elijah, a special set of songs of praise called Hallel, more wine, and the famous closeout next year in Jerusalem.
I hope that helped us to understand what the Jews did for Passover and how to celebrate the festival of the unleavened bread. And there was one part in the say where the youngest child in the family will always ask the 4 questions. They say Ma Nishtana, and they ask this question in a song. Okay, and what are the 4 questions? So I thought I'll just share here. The first question is, why on all other nights do we eat either leavened bread or matzah, which is unleavened bread, but only on this night we eat only the unleavened bread? That's the first question. The second question, the young child asked in a song. I think everybody knows the song, so everybody was saying to ask her, why on all other nights do we eat different types of vegetables, but on this night we only eat bitter herbs? The third question, why on all other nights do we dip our food once? Remember, vegetable dip on the salt water, but on this night we dip it twice. Okay, and the fourth question is, why on all nights we eat either sitting upright or reclining, but on this night, the Passover meal, we all recline to eat? And the answer they give it, the first one, is because they eat matzah because it's called the bread of affliction, reminds them of the suffering they had. Okay, the second question, why they eat bitter herbs, reminds them of what they were in Egypt, the bitter life they had. Remember, they were slaves before they came out of Egypt, and they were really slaughtered. They were persecuted because they were slaves. And the third question is, why did they dip the vegetable twice? There's the freedom one time, second time, freedom. And the fourth question is, why is it they recline? The answer is because it is really a luxurious act. Okay, well, very just recline it. So there's a 4 question. So I think I want to share this before Pastor tomorrow come and talk about Holy Communion. The first video we saw about festival, about something we understand. Okay, culture. I think they were one of the earlier tradition. So we understand this. They really went to the lady said they didn't just celebrate. They went to long 1 month or a whole month of preparation, removing all the yeast, removing the spiritual cleansing. And it just remind us each time when we come to the Holy Communion, because the Holy Communion is picking after the Passover. Just as the Jews prepare themselves for Passover and the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, do we as followers of Christ, when we come to the Holy Communion, which is celebrated once a month, how do we prepare ourselves to remove whatever ungodly things in our life?